After an absolutely amazing lap, it was Frenchman Fauchard that put his car on pole position. Alongside him, Hoyer, the first silver to put his car on the front row and the highest a silver driver has ever been. Matthews in P3, Murray in P4. P5 was Stoop. Alongside him, Wallace in P6, back-to-back P6 qualifying for him. P7 was Cassette. Alongside him, Nordell in P8. P9 was Babin, the championship leader, alongside him Johansson rounding off the top 10, the second of the silver drivers. P11 was Watson and P12 Leiter, the top 3 silver drivers, all qualifying one place next to each other. In P13, Robs in P14. P15 was Bosman, alongside him Fantozzi, a pool qualifying from him down in P16. P17 was Tan, alongside him fellow American Runo in P18. P19 was McNamara, and rounding off the top 20 was Lubo Bratovic in P20. P21 was Howe, a poor qualifying from him, Martinez alongside him in P22. P23 was Byrne in the third Bentley, and alongside him Kamira making a comeback in P24. P25 was the first of the AM drivers, Prevot, alongside him championship leader Yi in P26. P27 was Joe R, P28 was Cupers, and P29, the last of the qualifiers, was Chin. P30 was Lechtgeman, P31 was Cheng, and P32 was Pashov, those last 3 drivers being dropped to the back of the grid due to grid penalties. Looking at the race highlights, as the race got underway over a very overcast cloud in Spa, it was Fauchard on pole position. Would he get a good getaway? And he did. He got a great getaway, instantly coming over to the inside to cover from Hoyer to make sure that Hoyer did not make a move on him. Everyone came through Rouge and Radion fairly safely, no incidents there, which was good to see. The first overtake on track after the race start was Wallace, as he went round the outside into Lecombe and sticking his car there, losing a bit of grip, but managing to pull off that overtake. A great overtake there by the Aston Martin driver. Further back, coming down now into the hairpin of Bruxelles, everyone side by side, people trying to gain as many positions as possible. And like always at hairpins, we have an incident. And for the second race running, it was silver championship leader Watson that was collected in the incident, spun at the hairpin, and unfortunately Bosman, being an innocent bystander, also collected in that, and also Lechtgeman also getting involved towards the end there, not seeing the stricken car of the South African. So for Watson, a big blow to his silver championship challenge for the second race in a row. Further up, Matthews was looking to make moves on Hoyer, the silver driver, after putting a great qualifying to put him P2. Was going to have a tough start to the race, trying to fend off from a bunch of pro drivers. He tried his best, but also did not put up much of a fight. Hoyer, knowing that he was going for this silver championship and not the overall one, going to the inside here, but Matthews round the outside with more grip. The Aston Martin managed to find a way through. You hear the siren, there's a few cars pitting very early there, first lap pitting to get a huge undercut on other drivers, the drivers that were going to just refuel and not do tyre changes. Further back, Wallace now also having a go at the silver driver. Hoyer going to the inside, but not putting up much of a fight, knowing that the 2 pro Aston Martin drivers were just so much faster that they were naturally going to go through into P2 and P3 for those 2. A good race start from both of those Aston Martin drivers. On lap 2, well, it was terrible news for Babin. After going for this huge undercut, which could easily pay off a time penalty, a stop and go 30 for the Canadian for speeding in the pit lane, and a radio message he really did not want to hear.
We've been given a stop and go penalty.
It's going to be a long way to recover from this one for the Canadian. His championship hopes taking a huge blow because of this stop and go penalty. What kind of position could he recover after this? Next up, to find a way past Hoyer was Nordell. Hoyer Almost unfortunate that he qualified so well, because all the pro drivers in the race, with the pace they have, just all wanting to get through. Nordell in the Mercedes, right in that slipstream with the grunt of that car, and coming into Paul Ferrier, he goes down the inside. I think Hoyer, you can see having his indicator on here, letting him through almost, knowing that he would lose less time just letting the Mercedes driver through instead of trying to defend from the position. And up into P4 Nordell went, and he was on a mission to try and catch his fellow pro drivers up ahead. But letting the pro drivers through did come with consequences. Hoyer now being harassed by Johansson for P1 in class. The two silver drivers that came late into this championship now looking to win this championship with good results. On lap 3, we caught up on Watson, who was making his way up from the back of the grid, currently in P19, and he was right on the back of Porsche driver Letkinen. And as a lot of people that have been in this championship or watched this championship, these two drivers know each other very well. Nürburgring, Watson spinning Letkinen, making him lose positions, and Kyalami, Letkinen spinning Watson, making him drop to the back of the grid. These two coming together in 2 of the 5 races, well, 4 races in this 5th race. Would they be able to battle it out without coming together? Well, Watson, knowing the strengths of the Bentley on this track, being its straight line speed, tucks into the slipstream of the Porsche and knows to get a solid run up Eau Rouge and an exit on Radion, which was pretty good from him. And after that, well, the Porsche driver, the Canadian Letkinen, did not have much chance to defend from the straight line speed of that Bentley. Watson moves into the inside and he pulled off that roof pretty well. On lap 4, well, Eau Rouge and Radion took its first victim. Nordell hitting a bit too much curb and losing it, narrowly missing the wall at the top, but unfortunately hitting the second wall, which not only has he now lost several positions, but some heavy front end damage, and he was going to have to limp home this whole lap and also fix and repair the car. That was a big blow to his championship challenge, as he was running in P4, a good place for him. He was now dropping down the order. Whilst that was going on, well, a great battle here for Johansson, the silver driver, getting in the mix with the pro drivers here, being followed by Canadian Cassette in his McLaren. He got a really good run up Eau Rouge here, and Cassette in the slipstream, as you can see there, Nordell going off into the barriers. He just got so much overspeed compared to the Aston. Johansson, though, going defensive, positioning his car really well there on the inside. That would make it really hard for Cassette to make a move round the outside into Lecombe. But Cassette now on the inside, but Johansson with the grip would have the inside into Malmedy, and now he was remaining in front of the pro driver. However, a terrible exit from Bruxelles meant that Cassette could try and hang it round the outside here, as they come down into the double left-hander here. Well, Johansson having the inside, but Cassette was not going to yield. He stuck it round the outside here, going off track slightly to try and maintain momentum, but it was Johansson in the end that could hold on to the position. That was until he outbroke himself here, and Cassette down the inside here, and this time Johansson could not fight back for that position. Next up was another pro driver, Stoop, that was going to be looking to get past the Aston of Johansson. And it wasn't too long until Stoop managed to get past Johansson as they come up Eau Rouge and across Radion. Stoop with the straight line speed of that Ferrari, the setup those guys had was so quick. Well, Johansson had little chance to defend from that, and Stoop safely went through. Lap 7, well, another one bites the dust. Watson, silver championship leader. Again, just like Nordell, too much curb, but a big loss on the back end there. He still had rear damage from the tag at the start of the race. I don't know if that came into play when he lost the back end, but a huge shunt into the barriers. A 360 to get going again, but massive damage, and he would have to pit for that, and that was going to drop him pretty much a lap down. On lap 8, well, Cassette and Stoop had both caught up to the back of Hoyer, the McLaren driver, swarmed by two pro drivers here. Would he put up much of a defense? As you can see behind there, the two Norwegians, Herkebert and Johansson, going side by side out of La Source. But all eyes on this battle here. The battle for P4. Cassette down the inside. Hoyer giving him no room, squeezing him onto the grass, and Cassette somehow maintaining grip of his McLaren, and he manages to find a way past the Czech driver and moving up into P4. It was not over for Hoyer though. Stoop now right on the back of him, another pro driver that would be looking to make a move and get past. Further back, Herkebert was the one that managed to get past his countryman Johansson, and Johansson will be looking to try and get that position back as he was stuck behind a blue flagged car which lost him a lot of momentum, and Herkebert capitalized on that and made the move. Coming out of the pits, Watson, after fixing his damage, well, his day got even worse. Coming out of the pit, a familiar time penalty we've seen already this race. A stop and go 30. We saw Babin's overall championship leader get one, and now Watson get one.
We've been given a stop and go penalty.
Could this day get any worse?
The Bentley driver, really no chance to recover now, after now having to go back into the pits as he loses it slightly going through Lecombe. He was not happy. Lap 9, well, Stoop finally made his move. Hoyer not really putting up much of a fight, knowing the Ferrari driver was much faster. He went out wide, and Stoop up the inside. Pretty easy overtake for him. On lap 10, we watched Johansson make a comeback on his fellow Norwegian Herkebert. Johansson knowing he's the faster car, and Herkebert making a mistake going out wide there and into the double left-hander. Johansson down the inside here, but impressively Herkebert just did not yield. He said, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going round the outside here, and I'll have the inside for the following corners. And that's exactly what happened. However, Johansson round the outside and now on the inside, and he manages to move up into P2 in class and P7 overall. However, this battling allowed pro driver Fantozzi to catch up. The Brazilian, qualifying down in P16, had a very good race start, and now up into P9 he was looking to get past these two silver drivers to gain some solid points in the overall championship, as Johansson pulled away slightly, but Fantozzi on the back of Herkebert, he will be looking to make a move on the Norwegian driver. On lap 11, the first of the lead cars bites the bullet. It was Matthews in P2, thinking, let's go for the undercut. As we sat on board here to watch the pit entry, a perfect pit entry it was. However, that doesn't mean he wasn't going to get a stop and go. As we saw, Watson sped on pit entry, but Babin actually disengaged his pit limiter, which is why he got a stop and go penalty. But Matthews looking for a really solid, swift pit stop. 2 laps later, Fauchard responded. After 2 solid quick laps from him, he thought, I better not stay out too much longer, if not Matthews will get the undercut on me, as he enters the pit. And just like Matthews, a good entry, he will be looking to have a swift pit stop. So what does that mean? Well, it meant that Wallace, as we'll see coming down the pit lane now, pit straight now, into the lead of this race. However, yet to do his pit stop, he would have to put in some solid laps to do a big overcut to try and come out. However, what we really wanted to see was Matthews as he comes here through into the bus stop. Where was Fauchard going to be? Well, down the main straight, the pit straight here into La Source. Would the undercut work for the Aston Martin driver? All eyes looking for that blue and red Ferrari. As he came up into Eau Rouge, there he was coming out of the pit. But the speed of Matthews meant that he would now take the lead of this race. Fauchard, after getting pole position and leading every lap from then, dropping down into P2. Matthews' strategy of an undercut playing off brilliantly. And he was now up into P1. And Fauchard, would he be able to get back at the Aston Martin driver and retake the lead of this race? Further back, well, Leiter looking to capitalise on Watson's disastrous race. Well, Renault, after spinning Watson at the race start, wasn't done with taking out silver championship contenders. Outbraking himself into the bus stop. The Brazilian could not believe it. He was currently P3 in class. This was the battle for P3, and he was now dropping back and with damage as Watson comes along here, unlapping himself. Watson's still a lap down here, unlapping himself, but Leiter, well, he thought his day was going well until then. Onto the second to last lap of the race. Well, Hoyer was in the lead of the race. However, the net lead was still Matthews and Fauchard because Hoyer was yet to do his pit stop. So on the final lap of the race, well, second to last lap of the race, Hoyer would go into the pits. He would leave it so late for this massive overcut. He thought if he goes all the way through and then pit on what would be the final lap, since he'll cross the line, perfect pit entry, where would he come out? Would he be able to gain positions? Would he be able to come out in the lead of the race after doing this huge overcut? For P1, Matthews managing to hold on so far. He's a very consistent driver, as we saw at Kyalami, making very little errors, and Fauchard also making very little errors, but just not being able to close the gap enough to try and make a move on the Aston Martin driver. Again here, not close enough, the bus stop being one of the overtaking opportunities. Fauchard was just not quite close enough there to make a move, but he now, as they come round the corner onto the final lap of the race, Fauchard knowing this was his last chance. Either on the Kemmel Straight or the bus stop, the two most likely places to overtake, he needed to be on the back of the Aston Martin. Braking so late into La Source, he got really close to the back of that Aston, which is exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to be in that slipstream as they went up Eau Rouge and across the Kemmel Straight. Looking out there, we see Hoyer coming out of the pits, and there he is. So he'll come out on P3, a good pit stop from him and a good strategy. However, for the third time today, we would see this message come on our screens. A time penalty, a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pits. And the familiar radio message that came along with it.
We've been given a stop and go penalty.
Absolute disaster for the silver driver. We thought we were going to see a silver driver on the podium for the third race running after Bathurst and Kyalami. But since there was no time to serve that stop and go, it would be added as a time penalty, and he would drop right down. However, all eyes on this battle for P1 as they come into Sector 2 here. A yellow flag up ahead. Fashad hoping it would not interfere with his chances of overtaking. The white flag there being shown for a slow car. And who was it going to be? Well, it was actually Leiter, the Brazilian, being tangled up in another incident, dropping further back. His race getting from good to worse to just absolute terrible. A very unfortunate result from him. However, as they get past the slow car here, well, Fashad knowing there's nothing in the way now, he had to get on the back of that Aston Martin. A brilliant exit there as they come into Paul Frère and then into Blanchemont. He was trying to get right on the back of that Aston Martin. He would have to brake as late as he could into the bus stop. Matthews going defensive here, forcing Fashad to go out wide. Fashad trying to brake, then not being able, trying to cut back here to get a great exit, and he does that, but just not good enough. And the small run to the finish line, it was Matthews that would come across and win the Spa Grand Prix, and back-to-back race wins for him. Unfortunate for Fashad, even though he got pole position and fastest lap. Hoyer would come through in P3, Hoyer having a really good race. However, he would have to wait and see where his stop and go time penalty would end up dropping him. So the actual P3 would come to Murray, his second race after switching to the McLaren. Kyalami being a write-off after he was tangled in an incident. But this time a really good result from him, P3 from him, and that would round off our podium of Matthews, Fashad and Murray, with Fashad getting the fastest lap. P4 and P1 in class was Johansson, back-to-back class wins for him, and a very good result for him, considering Leiter and Watson both, and Hoyer, all three of them actually, having pretty terrible race results. For the AM drivers, it was Prévost who managed to win the AM class. He would controllingly win the AM class, even coming ahead of several silvers like Martinez there right behind him. A great race result from him, and he would be really chuffed with that result, and a great drive from the Frenchman. So there we have it, Matthews winning the race, Fashad in P2 and Murray in P3. So what does that mean to the overall race results? Well, Matthews 25 points for P1, Fashad getting 20 for P2 because of the bonus points for fastest lap and pole position, and Murray in P3 getting 15 points. Johansson P4 and P1 in class, Max Stoop P5, Fantozzi P6 after a great recovery drive from 16th on the grid. He Mr. Consistent, finishing in the top 10 once again. Nordell in P7, a good result for him considering his crash on lap 4. Herkebert in P8 and P2 in class, the two Norwegians coming first and second in class, good results from them. And P9, Russen Pashov, starting at the back of the grid after grid penalties, last place, finishing in P9, a really good drive from him, and a really good getting P3 in class. And Runo rounding off the top 10 with P4 in class, a decent drive from him, although considering his two incidents with Watson and Leiter. P11 was Rob's, a decent drive from him, and Kamira coming home in P12. Byrne coming home in P13, the best of the Bentley drivers, a good drive from him from 23rd on the grid to finish P13. Letzkeman and Babin P14 and 15, Byrne splitting the Canadians there. Babin obviously a race to forget for him. Hoyer, after his stop and go penalty turned into a time penalty, dropped all the way down to 16th from P3. That was a big blow for him. Wallace in P17 after he had an incident with a back marker, and Prevot in P18 winning the AM class, a really solid race from him. Martinez P19 and Leiter dropping down to P20 overall because of his 3 incidents in the last 3 laps. A really unfortunate way to end the race for the Brazilian driver. P21 was Cupers, who got P2 in the AM class. P22 was Bosman, and P23 Watson, a forgetful race for him. Chin in P24, which was P3 in AM class, a good podium from him again. Tan in P25, another driver that had a bit of a disaster this race, and same with McNamara in P26. P27 was Joe R, a good result for him, P4 in class, and Yi, P28, P5 in class, not great for the AM Championship leader. Cassette in P29, and Luba Bratovic, the first of the DNFers, and 31st and 32nd, also 2 cars that DNF'd. So what's that mean for the Drivers' Championship? Well, now that we've done 5 races, we are going to implement the rule, which we have done on this here, of the 2 worst results not counting. In this league, we don't count the 2 worst results, which allows drivers that cannot fully commit to the full season to still have a chance of winning the championship. So if they miss 2 races and get 2 DNFs, which is 0 points, they will both be removed from the results. That also allows, though, drivers that have bad races to get them scrapped from the results. So what does the results and the result from Spa mean to the championship? Well, Matthews now on 67 points. A great result from Matthews, and that puts him well ahead of P2, which is Babin, 28 points. That's a full race win ahead of Babin in P2. Nordell in P3, only 1 point behind Babin now, though, and Stoop moves up to P4 on 37, only 1 point behind the Swedish driver. Fantuzzi in P5 on 34, also really close there. Beanchez drops down to 6th on 28 since he did not race once again. Watson is now joined by another silver driver in the top 10, Johansson, both of those on 27 points, and Stosic and Martinovic sharing P9 and 10, both on 22 points, both not racing the last 2 races. Looking at the silver standings, well, Watson and Leiter not scoring any points here, and with the 2 worst results removed, Johansson is now only 9 points behind the championship lead. That has blown the championship wide open for the Silver Championship, and Johansson looking to carry his form next week at Brands Hatch. Esteban drops down to P4 on 45 after not racing. Robs in P5 on 41. Herkeber moves up to 6th on 36 points after his P2 class. A good result for him. Tan drops down to P7 on 35 points. Byrne moves up to P8, sharing that with Bosman. Both of those on 24 points. A good result for Byrne as he's looking to climb up that championship table after poor results at the start of this season. And Pashov sneaks into the top 10 on 21 points after a really good drive from him. Gets him P3 in class. Amazing recovery, the best we've seen this season. And last but not least, looking at the AM standings, well, that had a big reshuffle after Spa and after removing the 2 worst races. Cooper's now in the lead of the championship once again, only 3 points ahead of Yi, though, in P2. Prevot moves up to P3 on 73 points, only 10 points down now that we've removed the 2 worst results, him being a driver that's missed a few races due to not being able to make them. And after a brilliant race win here at Spa in class, he is now in 3rd place and only 10 points behind. Chin drops down to 4th on 66, and Joe R on 55 in 5th. He is looking to catch those top 4 drivers. Volts and Bassino 6th and 7th still on 24 and 23 points respectively after not racing the last few races. what does that mean for the Manufacturers' Championship? Well, Aston Martin still in the lead, even after removing the 2 worst results and adding the Spa results. It's Matthews, obviously, that's carrying that team with his whopping 67 points. Moving up into P2, though, on the Manufacturer Leaders list is Johansson on 27, and then Ricciardi, Wallace, and Herkabert being the remaining drivers that have scored points for Aston Martin, bringing them to a huge total of 126 points. P2 is Ferrari, only 16 points behind on 110. They'll be looking to win the Manufacturers' Championship with some solid drivers in their lineup. Stoop is now the top scoring driver with 37. Fantozzi only 3 behind on 34. And Fashad, with his 20 points today, moves up into P3. Those 3 will be looking to carry Ferrari to a Manufacturers' Championship win. McLaren moves up to P3 after a solid result from them. 80 points for them, and most of that coming from Murray at today's race. His P3 getting him 15 points, moving up into P2 out of the Manufacturer Leaders. P4 is Porsche. They dropped down to P4 after obviously non-scoring points from Babin being one of his worst results. He is still their leader, and Pashov joins them though with 2 points as he came P9 today. AMG Motorsport, well, Mercedes in P5, Nordell and Stosic, the only 2-point scorers again. Nordell did score points today, but it being one of his worst results, it does not count now, and they remain in P5 on 60 points. They'll be looking to try and get that podium place. Out of the teams that probably have no chance of catching the ones ahead, top is still Bentley with their 3 drivers, obviously no points scored from them, and P7 is Lamborghini Squadra Corsa, Leiter being their only driver now, only 10 points scored by him. And lastly is Audi Sport. After Hamlin did not race, they remain in P8 on 7 points.